Thank you for joining today's Contract Lifecycle Management webinar with Onit. We appreciate you all being here, and the first thing I would like to do on this slide is to take a second and introduce our speakers today. My name is Matthew Deeden, and I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Onit, and I am joined by our VP of Sales, Matt Denowden. And unfortunately, our CLM Sales Director, Charmel Ryan, is not able to join us today due to a family emergency. But she will be joining us on our webinars going forward, and she is a terrific thought leader in this space. So if you do get a chance to attend a future webinar with her, I really encourage that you do so. And last but not least, our very own Onit sales engineer, Wes Dubé. So before we get started, I would like to go through our agenda and a few housekeeping items. We are going to start with a brief introduction on Onit, and then we're going to go straight into what contract lifecycle management is and why it matters to your business. And we're going to follow that up with a live Onit CLM software demo given by our very own Wes. So you're really going to see how it works firsthand. Now for housekeeping, we will be having a live Q&A after today's session. So please feel free to submit questions throughout the webinar. And at the end, we will go through and answer those questions and in the order that they were received. Also, we will be having a live audience poll at the end of the webinar. So please answer those questions because we're going to go through those results as a group. It will be anonymous, but it's going to be very informative for everyone. It's going to be a great exercise. It's going to cause a great discussion. So please participate in that. And if you have any technical difficulties, please send us a message and let us know so we can help you solve any issues that you might be having. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our VP of Sales, Matt Denowden.
Hello, everyone. This is Matt. I'm so pleased that you were able to join us today. I'm going to keep my introduction relatively brief because I'm just as excited as I hope you are to spend most of our time with Wes and directly in the product. But I did just kind of want to give you a little bit of background on the company and our solution and kind of how we see the marketplace. So Onit, as of the end of last year, now has 400 customers. Simple Legal is customers are included in that list. They are our partner in the space. They offer an ELM solution to mid-size and small law departments. Together, we have now over 400 customers. We're pretty well represented, as you see, in the Fortune 500. We're also quite well represented globally, both in terms of customers who have a global footprint and, in fact, customers who are domiciled in Japan, domiciled in Europe, domiciled in London. We have a wholly owned subsidiary in Pune. So as we are sitting here today, over 70 customers are working with Onit in the contract space. As you will literally see today in just 10 minutes or so, we have quite a robust solution that we're very proud of and have made a heavy seven figures investment in the last year. And so if we sort of think about what makes Onit a little different, I guess in some ways it's because we've now spent over 8 years listening to our customers about what is the most important thing for them in running out a contracts management solution. And we've just essentially run our roadmap in close consultation with our customer base. I think most of you probably know that fundamentally Onit is a workflow solution, right? And so we're very much oriented to the process. That helps us, across the board in our solutions. You can imagine that's helpful in how we solve, say, a legal holds workflow. But of course, the contract management use case and process as it exists in our customer base is very much about approvals and collaborations and reviews and passing the right information to the right person at the right time. And that kind of end-to-end orchestration is sort of fundamentally what Onit is all about. And if I can, I think what we're pretty good at. So if we think about, well, who are we working with, right? So over on the right-hand side of the slide here, we are fortunate to have deep and often 20-year relationships with all of the leading consulting partners in our space. There are more than are listed here. There's only so much room on the slide. But if you're already working with a consultant or if you're already working with the DM solution, these folks are pretty deep partners of Onit, and we have pretty tight integrations with, say, iManage and NetDocs and some of the solutions you see here. So we certainly are trying to make sure that our platform solves as much of the use case as possible, but where there are already best-in-class solutions for, say, document management or other use cases, Tableau being obviously a BI reporting tool, we are very much about partnering and creating a seamless user experience with those partners in our tool. And you'll see a little bit of that today. So what Wes will be showing you, and I'm pretty sure he's going to kind of take this in a day in the life kind of a flow, right? Walking through the workflow. We are particularly good at what sometimes is called intake or requests, right? So getting the work from the business into the contracts management platform, whether that represents an integration with Salesforce or an integration with some other CRM tool, or whether it is exposing an intake form and a request form to the business so that it can easily get information in. Sometimes this is what's called sometimes self-serve, meaning that the objective of the intake is to get the information quickly through the system with as few edits as possible. Oftentimes that's the use case with NDAs. But fundamentally what we want to do is make it a light lift for the work to come into the group. We have some great tools, of course. Most of us, including myself, practiced law for a long time. And so the exercise, of course, of negotiating, amending, authoring the contract is at the core of the workflow. And then all the series of approvals, both internal and external. As a SaaS, we're pretty good at sending information securely out to other parties and to people not within the core team. And then, of course, the analytics and repository and obligations management piece once the contract is signed and cycle from that point forward. So if we kind of want to break it down into, even more granular level here, kind of at 12 or 1 o'clock is the beginning of the wheel and on through to there. Along the way, as you're going to see, and again, I'm going to make sure we get to Wes's demonstration very quickly here, we can help you manage a number of different contract templates. We have customers who are using dozens of contract types, hundreds of fields, lots of different user types, on the contracts team, in the business, in finance, etc. And so really this full life cycle, hence the name, of course, contracts lifecycle management, is sorted in our solution, and we're excited to show you that. So if we sort of pull back and we think about the marketplace, and obviously we'd love to hear from you during the questions and discussion portion of this, kind of what your experience is, but we've made this commitment to the contracts market space because we are hearing from our friends and customers that this is a significant need for them, and frankly that they're kind of unhappy with some of the tools that they're currently using or trying to use. And so the public information in the consulting community is that over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, there is going to be a significant adoption and continuing adoption of contracts management. Obviously, the graph here is sort of intended to indicate where those folks are in terms of size of companies. We tend to focus on the right-hand side of the spectrum, but we have customers that are in that $100 million to $200 million range as well. Our system scales and our price point scales, and so we're happy that we can serve a broad spectrum of this marketplace. If we kind of think about the why of contracts management, and I hope I'm sort of speaking to the choir here in terms of there must be a why for you, and that's why you're on the call today. But the thing that is exciting for us is just how close the value proposition of a good contracts workflows sits to the business, right? How much direct and hard value there is. And so we're seeing a lot of different areas here just in terms of price increases that are missed in the applications management and contracts management solution. That's pretty direct ROI, right? If I can fundamentally enforce the bargain that I've already struck with in my contracts through the tool. And then also just the volume, the sheer volume of contracts that a lot of our customers are managing. And the data points that you see in the lower left are not uncommon among our customer base. as we do principally play in the Fortune 1000. And then there are just sort of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, which is that in the absence of a good system that is fully and properly adopted, on the right-hand side, we know it to be the case that as much as 10% of contracts are simply lost in the flow. Sometimes before they are executed, sometimes they are after. And so, again, in the lower right, we have on good authority that as many as 20% of contracts never really reach their final proper resting place, right? People celebrate the execution, but then it doesn't quite make it to the repository because people are off to the races on working through the contract. So, the business case for a contracts management solution is extraordinarily tangible. And so we are happy. I'm not going to read all of this data to you. I think it's probably fairly intuitive. But we can show, and there is lots of good industry data to show, double-digit increases in efficiency, double-digit decreases in cycle time. And so these are all pretty common data points. And if you're in the process of making a business case for a change in your contracts management solution, we have a team of experts here. Charmel and Vic, who's the product manager, each are 20+ years in this space, and we are really happy to make them available to you. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Wes, who's going to walk us through the contracts management solution. And obviously, I'm happy to participate in answering the questions, which may be about the product or which may be about other things later on. So Wes, I'm going to pass it to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt. And so as Matt said, my name's Wes. I'll be taking you through the demonstration today. I've shared my screen and we're looking at a suite dashboard right now, which is our idea of the entry point into Onit. And I'm looking at a contract administrator's dashboard, giving me insight to where my contracts are, whether they're with legal or finance. Also, we can see timelines for important dates around my contracts. And here we're also seeing where my contracts are in their life cycle as far as authoring versus signatures or in our repository. One of the important takeaways about Onit is, while I'm showing you our idea of what a contract administrator's dashboard might look like, this is really going to be tailored to your organization's needs and the views that you want. So the idea is that we lay down a solution that's most of what a client's going to need, probably about 80 or 85%. But then we're going to configure the dashboards. We're going to set up the metadata to associate with your contracts appropriately. So when I talk about configurable, I mean that our implementation team is going to work with you to really make this look and feel the way that you'd like it. And that starts here at the suite dashboard. So we're able to put counter widgets on here. We're also able to bubble up this information graphically through bar charts and pie charts. Really anything that you want to be able to identify around your contracts, whether it's life cycle metrics, which departments these requests are coming from, all of this information can be compiled and put into a suite dashboard widget and graphically displayed the way that your team would like it to be. So these are configurable dashboards. They're also role-based, which is to say what I want to see when I come in is going to be different from someone who's in a role that's managing executed contracts or working with our clause and template library. And so to show an example of that, these role-based dashboards, here's a repository view that we've put together. And then here's a view into our template administration where we can see clauses that are coming up for review, where our templates are at and things like that. So these dashboards, they're role-based. They have drill down. So I can click through any of these views and be able to get to the report information behind it. And also I'm one hyperlink away from being able to drive into the clause or template and take action on it. From there, I wanted to talk about intake. Part of the process of having contracts is making it easy for the requesters, and we can do that through a number of ways. One of the ways we would do that is being able to stand up a portal page like you see here. This is all HTML based, so we would have your logo and colors here, but we want to make it really easy to be able to come in, request a new contract, request an NDA. These ultimately are just hyperlinks, so it's really easy for us to put these where it's most appropriate. So if you already have an internal SharePoint site or intranet, we can have these links to make new contract requests live there as well. And we've also placed in places such as Salesforce. So when I'm on an opportunity record in sales, I can initiate a contract request directly from that Salesforce record. Again, doing it in the places that are going to make it most easy for those requesters to access. Regardless of where I launch a contract request from, it's going to initiate our intake form. And this, just like our suite dashboards, is totally configurable to your team's needs. So if you see some fields here that aren't really relevant to the types of contracts that you're working on, just know that it's going to be tailored to have the content that you want. We want it to be easy. We're going to do that by pre-populating values where appropriate and utilizing drop-down lists to help mitigate free-form text, so we're getting good information and data into the system. And you'll also notice some of these fields have been flagged as required or optional, so you can decide how much control you want over the information coming in. It's dynamic as well. So when I select a contract type, like Master Services Agreement, notice that the content here changes, and now we're asking questions based off of this contract type that's really relevant to that contract. So contract amount, whereas if we select a non-disclosure agreement, we don't need amount, so we're not going to put that information in front of the requester, keeping all the fields that they're selecting relevant to their request type. So let's go ahead and create a contract. And also, based on the selections that I'm making here, we can drive workflow. So if you have contracts that are self-service, we can skip the negotiation phase and we can go right into signatures. We have native integration with DocuSign and Adobe Sign, or we can facilitate a wet signature process as well. If this is coming from third-party paper, we can just make that designation. Once we get to the attachments area, we're going to require that attachment. For me, I'm going to build a contract from our own paper, so it's going to be optional when we get to the attachments area. So we can also put in logic for whether or not a field would be required. We'll go ahead and move forward here. And here I'm selecting the other party. Frequently, as a best practice, we'll pull this list in from a CRM tool like Salesforce or SAP, so you're not having to manage this list in two places. We can create new, and we can wrap workflow around adding new other parties to make sure you want those as a part of your list. We'll go ahead and move forward, and we'll submit that contract request. Now that a requester has requested that contract, we're going to send out appropriate notification emails to the contracting team, letting them know that a new request has landed. And that message would look something like this. Again, configurable. We would have your logo versus the Onit logo, and you control the messaging here. But you'll notice that we're populating metadata from the request into this notification email. We're also hyperlinking the document that we generated from template, so you can access it directly from the notification email. And I've got this view contract request button. We make these buttons large so they're thumb size on a mobile device. Onit is mobile friendly. If I go to view a contract request in Onit, we use what's called responsive design to automatically scale Onit to device size. So it's going to look appropriate whether I'm on a phone, if I'm sitting in front of a computer, or if I've got a tablet. And in this case, we want an early reviewer to actually go out to that contract and make sure information is correct. But if it's a later stage approver, we can also land action buttons on that notification email. And here's an example of putting not only to view the contract, but now I could click on the contract to review it, and then I can approve or reject right from email, not being forced into the solution in order to get work done. We'll also notice that my dashboard has updated automatically to reflect the new contract. So whether I'm clicking through from email or from the dashboard, it's going to take me out to that contract record. Here we're capturing information about that contract request. Across the top, you can see the main phases that this contract would go through, from authoring to signatures to filing. And over here, we can see participants that have been assigned, and we've got a little collaboration area where we can put in comments and attachments, and it can email out to the collaborators on that contract record. In my case, I'm going to show sending for internal and sending for external review, and we're going to be nimble and we're going to select who to send it to. But Onit is a workflow platform, and so we can automatically build serial or parallel workflows, set it up ad hoc. So if there's certain steps that a contract should automatically flow through, rather than clicking these buttons, it can automatically be designed to bounce from one location to the next. Also, I'll click over to the documents area here, show that we did build that contract from template. We've got full version control, and we don't get rid of the old version when a new version comes in. We keep full version history to be able to access that. We're also in an unlocked state, and we can facilitate the locking and unlocking so that we have control over how that contract gets modified. And I'm going to go ahead and send for external review to show how we can facilitate the negotiation with an external party. So now that we've built this contract from template, we're going to send it out to Jared and have the other party do their review of our template or our contract that we built from template. So we're generating an Onit notification right now out to Jared. You'll also notice that we've automatically locked that document. So while it's being reviewed by the external party, we're not changing it internally and then generating a disconnect there. And meanwhile, Jared has received a notification that looks something like this. Again, the wording is going to be totally under your control, but the important takeaway is that they get notified we've got a contract ready for their review. They can access it right here, and they can reply with their updates by just replying to this email or clicking on this link. Either way, it's going to use this unique email address associated with this specific contract record in Onit. So as Jared, I'm going to open up this contract, and we've highlighted here inside the document where we've brought field level information in. And so as Jared, I would review, and perhaps I don't like the idea that my contract can increase in value from 1 year to the next, so I'm going to delete this uplifts area. And notice that it's automatically redlined. So part of our document generation process is the ability to lock track changes on and password protect that. So contract administrators can see any changes that are made as this contract gets negotiated. And so that's going to be my only change as Jared. I'll go ahead and save this. And then to send it back, I'm going to just click to reply to this email. And I'm going to attach that version of the flyer agreement. And I'll say that my changes are attached. And we'll send that off. And because it's using this unique email address associated with the contract record, it's going to automate this entire process of landing the new version on the contract record. At the same time, we're going to notify the internal contract team that the other party has done their review by a notification email. So all of the work keeps moving. Let's go ahead and close out of this email, and we'll come over and refresh the document here. And you'll see we've automatically gone from that 1.0 version up to 1.1. We're back in an unlocked state, and we can see that this contract was checked in from external review, so we know where the most recent version came from. We're also notifying the internal team that the external party has done their review, so we know to go in and review or to access the document right from email. And so for the external party, that's really one of the ways that we have to facilitate negotiation. We make it easier for internal. And so as an internal reviewer, I could click right on this document link and be able to open it. Or if I wanted to facilitate this by, either automated workflow or the contract administrator is going to send it to me, I can also choose this send for internal review option here. And so imagine as an internal reviewer, this is how your work could get done. So I receive a notification email that there's a contract ready for my review. And inside that notification email, it has the link to the document. So I'm able to open up that contract document directly from my email in order to get work done. And we can also go ahead and open it up directly from the record as well. But here's the email notification. I can open up the flyer agreement from email. And unlike the other party where I have to download this document to my desktop, here we actually have this Onit add-in to Word that connects me directly to the Onit record. So I can do everything I need directly from Word. So everything can be facilitated right from email and from Word. Here you can see I have access to my clause library, and the Word add-in is automatically identified. This is the 1.1 version of the flyer agreement. And so if I notice that we don't have the limitation of liability in this contract, for instance, I can click into where I want it to go. I can access my clause library. It's going to show me only those clauses that are relevant to this contract type, the master services agreement. I can select that limitation of liability. It provides the wording for me in the description, and it also gives me guidance on when we should be utilizing this clause. If it's the one that I want, I insert it, and we can see that it's been inserted here. And from there, once I've made my review and done my changes, I can save this contract. It's going to ask me if it's a minor or major change. Minor increments it to that 1.2. Major change would increment it to a 2.0. I'll put included limitation of liability. And from here, I can simply check that document back into the Onit record, or I can progress workflow. If I know that Matt needs to review my changes, I can check it in and send it on to Matt. Or if I know that I was the last reviewer and we need to initiate the approval process, I can check it in and send it forward for approval, which I'll go ahead and do in this case. And I'm going to go ahead and send it to myself for demonstration purposes. We're going to save and finish. And this is going to provide us with a green pop-up that lets us know that the document's been saved successfully. So it has put this back into Onit automatically. We'll go ahead and close out here. And inside the Onit record, we're going to have updated this from the 1.1 to 1.2, and we've got that included limitation of liability. So as negotiations happen, everything's moving forward and progressing, and we're capturing it in the system, but we're not forcing external or internal users to be in Onit. They can continue to work where they're used to working, and we're going to land and update that document automatically. And I'll also update the record itself, and since I forwarded it to myself for approval, you'll notice that the action buttons here have been updated to also be able to include that, that ability to approve as Wes as well. We've captured the email that came in from the external party. We know the clauses that were utilized inside of this contract. And also inside the lifecycle metrics, as we forward this on through authoring and other party reviews and language reviews, we're capturing when we're entering a phase and when we're leaving, which can show us bottlenecks over time, and we can identify what's taking the cycle time and extending that, and perhaps be able to identify solutions around that time period. Now, once we go through our approval process, I'll just go ahead and push us through into language approved here, and we're going to see the fact that we have send for signature. I mentioned before, we have native integration with both DocuSign and Adobe Sign. In my case, I have DocuSign hooked up here, but we can also facilitate wet signature as well. And if there's another e-signature tool you prefer from those main two, we can certainly do an integration with any e-signature tool needed. If you always go externally first for signature and internally second, just clicking the send for signature button will do that. And so I would just click the button. I oftentimes during demos get asked the question though that sometimes we need it to go internal first, sometimes we need it to go external, and they want to see that they have the control over where to send it. So when I click on send for signature, it's going to ask me where to sign first and where to send second. But just know that if your process is defined, we can automate this. So I just click the button. And here I'm going to say that we're going to send it externally first. And we'll select Jared. And then I'm going to add a signer and we'll send it internally second to myself. And if we had additional signers, of course, we could add those in. We'll go ahead and submit this. This is going to automatically convert this document over to a PDF, and we're going to execute the e-signature process through, in this case, DocuSign. And let's go ahead and pull up that email. And here we see we've gone through DocuSign. I'm reviewing as the external party first, so as Jared. And we can put the tags for the signature line. In my case, I'm going to scroll down to the signing spot and bring that signature in. So we sign as Jared. And we'll get a notification from DocuSign that the other party is signed, and it'll be my turn as the internal signer to execute this agreement. And so now I'm acting as the internal signer. And we'll scroll down and go ahead and set that internal signature here. And we now have an executed agreement, and DocuSign is going to do its job. It's going to now email the two signers, letting them know that the agreement has been executed. But at the same time, we're able to generate Onit notifications to go out to any other roles that need to know that that executed contract is in place. For instance, oftentimes, most times in fact, the initial requester is not the person signing the contract. So we can automatically send out a notification with that contract linked, letting the requester know that we have that executed agreement in place as well. And any other roles that you may need to generate out a notification informing them of that executed contract. And so here's a notification where we're getting the note that we've got that contract fully signed that can go out to any of those roles that you need. And we also have those completed signing process notifications from DocuSign as well. And we'll close out of those and refresh this document tab here, and we can see that we've gone from that 1.2 to a 2.0 version, and we're in that, we've got that signed PDF. So there's never going to be a case where you go through and you get signatures and someone forgets to bring that out into the record or something like that. It's automatically brought in, of course, and updated on the contract record. So we have that signed agreement every time here. And I also wanted to take a look at reports as well. So let's jump over to a contracts report here. And this is what we call a grid dashboard. And it's a super easy way of getting ad hoc reports. And one of the nicest things is you're going to see that it's really approachable. So it's something that's not going to scare off the average user. I'm able to quickly find the type of contract I want. So from here, to orient you to what's going on, every column you see here is a field. Every row you see is a record or a contract in this case. And so I'm going to go ahead and control the content here by choosing this field selector button. Every column or every piece of information you decide to track about your contracts is going to be included here. And this list is updated in real time. We don't gate access to the ability to add values to drop-down lists or add new fields. And as soon as a new field is added for a contract, it's in real time available to be included here in these grid dashboards. And so these are the fields that are currently being displayed in this grid report. And here's all the available fields for my contracts. A lot of stuff. We don't want to have to scroll through all this to be able to find the values that we want. So in my case, let's say that I want to be able to see contract value. So I'm just going to search for amount. And you can see quickly it's only showing me the content that's relevant to what I've been typing in. So I can grab contract amount, drag it over and drop it where I want it to go. I hit OK, and now contract amount is included. I can also reorder the columns from this screen as well. So if I wanted to bring contract amount a little bit more prevalent towards the front, I can just drag that column over. Any of these values can be sorted by. You can see currently I'm sorted by effective date. But if I wanted to instead sort by requester name, for instance, I click once to sort ascending, A to Z. I click a second time to go descending, Z to A. And in order to filter on any of this content, I just click on the line right here. So if I'm looking for contracts that are greater than 10,000, this is an amount-based column, so we're getting amount-based filters here. I can set 10,000. And now I'm looking at just those contracts that meet that criteria. I could also say that I'm looking for just those contracts that have been requested by TAS. Now I'm looking at just the results that are coming in from TAS for that value. An important thing to note here is this is subject to my security rights. So if I was not allowed to see the contracts that TAS had requested, for instance, I wouldn't have any results here. This is tied to your security, but in my case, since I'm in as an administrator, I'm able to have insight into any contracts requested by any user. So you can see how you easily set your filters across the top, amount-based, wording-based, and then we also have time period-based filters as well, where I could say that I'm looking for just those contracts 90 days before today. And once you have that result set you're looking for, this can be exported out of the system. I can schedule this report. If this is something I need to provide to TAS on a weekly or a monthly basis, we can have it scheduled so I'm not having to come in here and execute this report all the time. I can also save this as a view so I don't have to come back through and reset these filters and the content. Or based on my role, I could also make this a canned report that's going to be available to everyone. So we moved pretty quick. We're also happy to do one-off demonstrations that are going to be tailored to your specific needs, but we were able to look at a contract, see intake, the negotiation process, the e-signature process, as well as reporting. And so I think that that's really what my main goals were today of conveying how our CLM system can operate. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and we'll be able to open it up for questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Wes. Really do appreciate that in-depth demonstration. Like I said previously, now if anyone has any questions, please feel free to submit them using that little Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen there, because we are now going to jump into the Q&A portion. Also, you should see that poll that just popped up on your screen. Again, if everyone can take a quick second and answer those questions, and after the Q&A, we can go through the results as a group. I think it will be very informative exercise for everyone. Again, it will be anonymous. Your name's not going to be showing up or anything. We just get to see essentially on a percentage standpoint. So we do have some questions here for you guys, and I'm going to go ahead and just read those in the order that they were received. The first question is the language in the contract searchable?
Yes. So we have a global search function that searches not only the metadata, but it can also search through the language of contracts. And you're able to specify and further filter similar to an Amazon style search page where you can filter down and say, I'm looking just at records, or I want to look at specific documents within those records. So yes, the language within the contracts is fully searchable.
Okay. Perfect. And the next question I have, I'm sorry if I missed this, but do you have self-service workflows as well as negotiated?
Absolutely. And that can be driven by decision tables. So for instance, non-disclosure agreements that are in standard language may kick off a self-service scenario where we skip all of those steps I had showed about going internally or externally, and instead we can deliver it directly for e-signature. At that point, as soon as the contract or the agreement is executed, we send out the notifications, but it does not land as work for anyone on the contracting team when it reaches those self-service requirements.
Perfect. Perfect. Third question we have is, can you have conditional workflows? For example, contract is over 50,000, then add an additional approver.
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. Onit is a workflow platform at its heart. So I actually press some buttons to send internal or send external. All of that can be structured. If you can define where a contract's supposed to flow on a whiteboard, we can set that up to automatically be created when that contract request is submitted.
Perfect. And then I do have a non-product question. I think this one's going to be geared for you, Matt, which is as basic as, how is your software licensed?
Yeah, sure. So probably the most important point to convey is that unlike most of our competitors, we do not base it on the number of users, right? Our philosophy at Onit is that we're giving you an enterprise solution. We are interested to know, mostly from just a deployment point of view, how many folks on your contracts or core team and how many folks might be submitters across the company. But we ask those questions only to have a sense of scale and give you a good time estimate of the project and help you be planful about it. So we do not charge per user. Instead, as a SaaS, we will give you a fixed price for the contract solution, which, like most SaaS, is the same year over year. So you'll fix a price with us for the recurring work that is predictable, 3 to 5 years, however long you'd like the contract. And we also are quite good, especially with the help of our contracts team, at scoping the services engagement. So if we're lucky enough to enter into that conversation with you, we can fix cost on at least the first phase, right, of the work together, which might be the only phase. And so we're going to give you fixed costing on the license or subscription and fixed costing, quote, on the implementation services.
Perfect. And then we did get a new question here for you, which is, could we apply record retention rules to drafts?
Absolutely. So we will follow your retention policy, and that can be based on document or record type. And once we reach those retention periods, we can essentially do at that point what you would like to do. So one thing that we might do is just notify your administrator of the records that have reached their retention limitation and allow them to go in and filter to those results and remove them themselves and have control over that process. We could automate the removal. We can go ahead and notify that the time period has elapsed and it's time to review those drafts if it's not about removing them, but instead making sure that it's still relevant. And so that's sort of a long answer to a short question, which ultimately, yes, we can follow your retention rules.
Perfect. And then we're going to go ahead and close the poll. I think it just got minimized from the screen. No biggie. So let's just see let me dig into what the responses were. So again, if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to submit them now. But as Wes stated earlier, if you would like to get more personalized questions that you aren't comfortable answering over the chat, then that's perfectly okay. We'll work with you on that. So some of the responses we have here, and I apologize I'm not showing them on the screen, is 86% of our attendees today have plans to obtain a CLM system. And based on I'm sure Matt, you have an opinion on this. Really, this is something that's really hitting our industry by storm. We just got back from Legal Week last week, and I think one of the most prevalent vendors there were all contract management vendors. So this is obviously a big software push that we're seeing in our space amongst other spaces, and that's something that obviously you alluded to in the beginning of the presentation. Another one is my company currently has a CLM system, 14% registered that. So 14% of our attendees already have a CLM system in place, which is fantastic. We love to hear that. And then 14% as well said my company is currently looking for a CLM system right now, actively looking. So that is fantastic to know as well. So we're obviously going to see those numbers increase as time goes on, and obviously that's what Onit is here to provide. But again, if we have no more questions, then I will think we will conclude our session today. I hope everyone enjoyed the webinar. If you have any more questions, or if you would like to receive a personalized demo from Wes, please feel free. You can reach out to any one of us directly, or you can contact us through our website or email us at information@onit.com, or you can call us directly. You see our number listed there below. Again, this webinar will be available on our website shortly. So if anyone would like to rewatch today's session, please visit the resources section of our website. We hope you all join us again for our next webinar. Thank you to everyone that attended. Thank you to all of our speakers for participating, and we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.